Good evening and welcome to Business Live. Coming up on this bulletin, former Securities and Exchange Commission boss Adwoa Safo entry reveals Eurobond investors could have a case against banks if purchase was based on investment advice. We'll be getting more details from Mr. Entry shortly. Also, Finance Minister shows required buffers have been built to meet all domestic debt exchange program obligations. Bank of Ghana denies giving MTN Ghana approval to undertake cross-border transaction with MTN Nigeria. This and more coming up shortly. So we have breaking news coming through. The former Kwabena MP, Adwoa Safo, has been referred to the disciplinary committee of the NPP. I have my colleague Evans Mensah sitting down to give us more updates on that. Evans, what's happening?
Yeah, Winston, just a short few minutes ago, the party confirmed that she's now been formally referred to the disciplinary committee of the NPP. Why? Because of an interview. She's just literally the last 30 minutes wrapped up here on Joy News, specifically The Pulse, where she's been saying a lot about what happened to the party and why they lost elections and the victimization of herself and her father. Now, the party earlier today issued a statement, a gag order of a sort to all party faithfuls across the country, length and breadth, to desist from going out with, in essence, washing the dirty linen of the party in public, including saying stuff that would put the party's name in disrepute. Now, it is on the back of that directive that Adwoa Safo was on Joy News, speaking obviously about a lot of things, including how his father was victimized, how she herself was victimized, and in fact, dismissing the party's committee that has been set up to look into why they lost the 2024 elections, dismissing that as bogus, right? And also questioning the integrity of that committee to do its work. He says the chairperson is conflicted. The party executives were listening. They were watching that particular interview here on Joy News. Shortly before that interview ended, they triggered the process to, in essence, send her to the disciplinary committee. Because in that particular directive that was issued, they were clear in there that anybody who violates that directive will be subject of a disciplinary hearing. A few things could happen to you. You will be cautioned, suspended for the party. We've seen that before in the past, where the likes of Charles Okubobe, who were very vociferous in criticizing the party, were suspended for the party for a long period of time. That could be one. You could actually also be expelled, depending on how this all goes. So that is what has been developing. Literally in the last 30 minutes, while the interview was happening, they were listening. And Elton Brobe is with me in the studio, obviously because he did the particular interview. Elton, surprised at this, considering what she told you?
Well, a bit surprised because, you know, during the interview, I pointed out to her that the party has issued a statement asking them to refrain from further comments on matters bordering on the internal issues of the party. And she responded to it that she was not going to stop. And even made reference to earlier comments made by the party general secretary, who in fact signed a particular statement that he started washing the party dirty linens in the public. And for that reason, you cannot now come, in fact, pointing out the fact that he lost the locus to direct anybody to stop talking. And I was going to go ahead and speak because the party is looking to establish why it lost the elections. And this is, for her, one of the reasons why the party lost, that the party forced people not to speak. And now the party is looking forward to understand why it lost the election and what they can do to make their chances better in 2028. This will constitute a healthy, discourse, so that everything is put out in the public domain. People understand the state of the party, they find solutions to it, and then they move forward. But he rejected the statement from the party, saying that she was not going to stop, and that she was going to push as far as she can to make her voice known, because she's been victimized, she's been described as a traitor, She's been described as somebody who didn't work in the interest of the party. And all those times she didn't respond. Now she's gotten the opportunity to make the factors known to everybody. And she is in her right as a lawyer. She said she's a lawyer, she's read the statement, and nothing stops her from commenting on what she considers to be an attempt by some individual to character assassinate her. And then once she's given the opportunity to speak, she'll continue to make that point clear.
And also, he gave us a sense of what her defense will be.
Exactly.
If she goes before the committee. She made the point that this is not about commenting on party affairs.
No, absolutely.
It's about defending her reputation.
Exactly.
That she believed had been sullied because of accusations against her. So her commentary is about defending her constitutional right to uphold and keep her reputation in the state that, of course, advances her own personality. But also, Elton, just one more thing on this particular matter as it's been unfolding in the last few minutes. When he also had a direct message to the party's general secretary who signed the direct
right.
Something about a love letter. Because when I was coming here, the party told me, they mentioned this love letter thing. I was listening and watching you, in bits whilst I was doing other things. What did she say about love letter to the party?
She says if the party wants her to stop these commentaries, then they should write officially to her. And that's her description of that. She said that perhaps the General Secretary should write her a love letter, pointing where she's gone wrong and what has to be done. But until that is made known to her, she'll continue to speak her mind. Okay,
so Winston, that's it. So that's a story that is unfolding in the last, 30 minutes or so. And so we'll see. This is setting up to be a very, very interesting time for the party, considering she was sitting where I'm sitting right now.
Right here.
And she already told us that she's going to fight it, she's not going to stop, and they cannot force her out of the party. So this is full-blown standoff.
Well, let me take your mind on something. Considering the position of the constituency in terms of numbers, do you think the party is willing to risk it?
That's another one. I mean, I think, Elton, part of this you have an answer to.
Yes.
Because of some things she told you about the consequences of any action that they take subsequently. Instead of repairing the damage, if they sort of aggravate it, could be even worse going forward. Yeah, so first, she will not resign from the party despite her resentment currently as we speak. Secondly, she has no intention of contesting the Domi Kwabena seat again. But there are deep-seated issues that must be addressed. One of them is the fact that her family, they've been maligned to the extent that their integrity is on the line. And she blames the former MP who lost in the last election and the former Speaker of Parliament as the masterminders of what has happened in the constituency, the reason why they lost the election. And that she has no intention of going again, but she will not resign from the party. She will continue to speak her mind. Because there are attempts in the party to make somebody look bad. And she even referenced the party flagbearer in the last election, Dr. Bawumia, that the committee has been tasked, headed by Professor Michael Kwe. Their main preoccupation right now is to blame Dr. Bawumia for the party's defeat in the last election, something that she is willing to fight to the very end. And when it's directed to your question, she's clear that until the reconciliation is done, as far as the Domi Kwabena constituency is concerned, Professor Michael Kwe and the Sun should forget about it. In fact, the MPP should forget about it until they fix the problems there. So this is only going to make matters.
Certainly a developing conversation, and we'll be bringing you up-to-date discussion here on the Joy News channel. Now let's go to more business updates. Former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Adwoa Safo, has revealed that Eurobond investors could have a case against banks over losses incurred. That is, if they are able to establish that the purchase of these bonds was purely based on investment advice. Let's hear from the Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Ehua, who has maintained they only facilitated the process.
So clearly, once the threshold of 75% was reached, whatever threshold covenants was discussed and agreed automatically became binding on all holders of Ghana's Eurobonds, which now stands restructured. So if you are an investor or a holder of the bond and you refuse or decline to participate, what you are saying is you are not interested in the instrument anymore, and therefore the only avenue for you is for you to get paid out. And getting paid out is for the instrument to go on the market on the day of settlement. And on that day, information we have is that they got 42 cents on the dollar. And once you did not participate, you also lose the extra benefit of getting a participating fee and also the treatment that was given to the accrued but unpaid principal repayments and coupons, which had already been in arrears. So for any investor or group of investors to now turn back and find the banks as an avenue for redress, I think they should just go back to the prospectus and they will find that they really do not have any recourse to the banks.
So how are you planning to respond to this?
We have not received any formal notification. We have just monitored reports. So we are just hoping that with the public engagements that we are undertaking and some level of education, these investors will come to the understanding that the decision to invest was their decision, and the instrument they invested in, those instruments were guided clearly by the prospectus that were issued in support of those issuances.
Let us also go on Zoom and speak with Dr. Adwoa Safo, who is the former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Good evening, welcome to Business Live. Doc, what is the basis of your argument that Eurobond investors could have a case against the commercial banks?
Well, let me clarify that statement. I said I didn't know the basis of this suit. But if the basis was that some information was withheld from them, then they will have a case. Because as an investment advisor, you are supposed to let the investor have all the information that is relevant to the issuance. So if a prospectus has been issued, you must let the investors have the prospectus. They would have to read that offer document and decide whether or not they would invest in the bonds or not. But if you are an investment advisor and you refuse to let the investors have this information, then I'm saying along that line, they could go and argue that you didn't perform your work well because you hid some information from them, and that is not what a professional investment advisor must do. That is the point I'm making.
Okay, Doc, what do you make of arguments that the commercial banks acted as agent for the government of Ghana?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, that if you are an agent of the government, but if your principal has given you information which you should give to the ultimate shareholder or investor who is coming to buy the shares, then you ought to have let that investor have that information. If the information is with you, you are supposed to sell the securities or market the securities with that information. But if you have the information and you just would not let the investors have it, then I'm saying that is where, if they are able to prove that the principal has given you information, but you refuse to give it to the investors, then you have to defend yourself why you didn't give them that information. And then if it's accepted, that is fine. But I'm saying, if that argument, because as I said, I don't know why they are going to court, but if they are going to court because they think that there was certain information that you had, but you didn't give it to them, and they say professionally you didn't act well, because as an investment advisor, you must give me adequate information, especially when the information is available to you.
Doc, how do we minimize this in future occurrence? Also, what are the risks associated should this happen, especially when huge investments are involved?
You see, as I have always been arguing that investors require information to make informed decisions. And that is why if you go to the Securities and Exchange Commission, whenever any issuer is going to issue some securities, the Commission will require you to provide sufficient, adequate information. That information is to enable investors decide whether or not they will purchase the bond. So sometimes the issuers will think that the regulator is forcing them to disclose so much, but that is what is required so that they would base their decision on the information available. Again, sometimes the information is given, and once it is given, if you, the investor, you don't read, and I mean, sometimes people do not read the information, even though the information is provided for the investor. In many cases, people will just, if there's a prospectus, they will just turn to the end page where the form, subscription form is there, and then they will just fill and sign and purchase the shares. In that case, the information has been provided for you. You decided not to read. So you can't come back and say somebody didn't give you the information. But if you're able to prove that the information was with the advisor and the advisor did not give you that information for you to make informed decision about what to do, then I am saying that you may be able to prove a case against the advisor for not acting professionally in that manner.
Doc, we appreciate your time here on Business Live. Now, in other development, Finance Minister Adwoa Safo has given firm assurance the required buffers have been built to ensure that all domestic debt exchange obligations are paid. The Finance Minister gave the assurance at a meeting with managing directors of banks at the Ministry of Finance today.
Speaking at the meeting, Finance Minister Dr. Adwoa Safo expressed government's commitment to fiscal discipline, whilst restoring confidence in the financial sector. He added that government is committed to put in place necessary buffers to ensure that every payment due any bondholder under the domestic debt exchange program is paid. Dr. Adwoa Safo also went ahead to identify some areas in the 2025 budget that government has demonstrated its commitment to fiscal discipline. One can talk about goods and services and plans to achieve a primary surplus of 1.5% this year to help attain economic stability. He also announced that they have come very far when it comes to submitting the fiscal responsibility rule to Parliament that will put in place debt ceiling for the country. Dr. Adwoa Safo also revealed that government is taking deliberate steps to reduce the reliance on treasury bills. The finance minister also noted that there will be more coordination between fiscal and monetary going forward. The meeting brought together all the governors of the Bank of Ghana, as well as directors at the Ministry of Finance.
Meanwhile, the chief executive of the Association of Banks, John Adwoa, has maintained that the meeting was needed to get some clarity on some issues in the banking sector and the economy.
The reports we have monitored, this is not a widespread threat of legal action. A couple of customers, so it's not like it's a widespread problem within the banking industry. But we feel it's important that we let the message out there so people can understand what kind of remediation they may have, if any, but that the record should never be to the banking sector. But the meeting of the Minister of Finance was very, very, very positive. We were also fortunate to have the Governor of Bank of Ghana join us in that meeting. It was basically for the minister to assure us on how the expenditure rationalization work is proceeding. As banks and Ghanaians generally, we've taken a lot of hits through the domestic debt exchange. We've gone through a whole lot of monetary constraints to be able to get the country where it is now. The minister has assured us they take it on board, but it is now time for the government to also demonstrate, in very clear terms, the kind of sacrifices that are being made. And he pointed us to some areas within the budget that has just been read where they are focused aggressively on expenditure rationalization, making sure that there is proper policy consistency between the fiscal managers of the economy and the monetary managers of the economy.
News coming through is that the Bank of Ghana has denied issuing license to MTN Ghana to undertake cross-border transaction with MTN Nigeria. This follows reports that MTN Ghana had been authorized to carry out these transactions. The Bank of Ghana, in a statement, also added that as far as it is concerned, Mobile Money Limited, providers of MOMO from MTN, has not been licensed or authorized to conduct cross-border transactions. Central Bank noted that in 2024, a pilot program began as part of its sandbox program to aid these transactions, which is currently reviewing before the final blessings are given. In other development, the General Secretary of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU Ghana, Morgan Ayawine, has hailed the government's idea of a 24-hour economy as an intervention in employment and economic growth. Speaking at the Bronga Hafo Regional Delegate Conference in Sunyani, Mr. Ayawine, however, called for further explanations and commitment to the policy without partisan polarization in the interest of job creation for the youth.
Hafo Regional Quadrennial Delegates Conference in Sunyani of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, ICU Ghana, served as a forum to take stock and plan the region's activities. The regional officer, Nuruddin Mohammed, reported membership growth of 67% from the 2021 figure of 1,239, even as they deepen steps to deal with challenges, including unnecessary contract termination and summary dismissal of workers. The conference elected new regional executives with Seth Kofi Ofori as chairman for a 4-year term. He assured of cohesion among employees and employers.
It's about win-win affair. The current state is like the employees want to mount pressure on employers to demand what is not there. And the employer also see differently. So we have to bring the two together. That once you take good care of your employee, it will yield the results for higher profitability, corporate image, and all those things. And when there is that cohesion, by all means, profitability will shoot up, and all of us will benefit.
The General Secretary of ICU Ghana, Morgan Ayawini, expressed worry about the unemployment level in Ghana, but commended the government for realigning the Labour Ministry.
We believe that to reorganize the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations and give it a new outlook in the form of employment, jobs, and labour relations, that alone depicts a clear commitment of the President and his government to formulate a tailor-made policy to deal with the jobs situation in our country.
The Labour Union hailed the 24-hour economy idea, but advocated for further explanations devoid of politics.
We very much hail the idea, but we still think that there's much work to do in terms of explaining and expatiating and defining the 24-hour economy so that everybody can embrace it. If it looks good, we don't think that it should be given a partisan, face. We should all embrace it. We have kept too long in coming out with a national development plan, and it is because of that situation that is lacking in our country. That is why the unemployment situation is getting worse. But supposing we have a national policy dealing with jobs and dealing with unemployment situation, we would have gotten somewhere by now. So the initiative of government looks good, but the implementation and the commitment is what we need to look at.
Precious Semevo, Joy News, Sunyani.
That's all for business here on Business Live. My name is Winston Taki. Thanks for watching. Have a good business day. Bye-bye.